Hi, welcome to our WCAT Wakefield Candidate Forum. My name's Anthony Guardia. To all my friends who are Catholic or Christian, I hope you have a wonderful Good Friday, a very solemn Good Friday today. We are here with candidate Allison Houghton, and we are doing something a little bit different than we've done in previous years. We are trying to spend about a half hour to an hour with each candidate, asking them questions about a variety of positions. And we've received these questions from the community. We asked via Facebook, so other social media channels, what would you like to hear from your candidates? What would you like to know? What positions are you curious about? So with that said, we're going to start with my friend, Allison Houghton. Allie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, I'm going to start with the most difficult question. You ready?
I'm ready.
Can you introduce yourself to the town of Wakefield?
Yes.
And can you tell them why they should vote for you?
Okay, I'm Allie Houghton. I grew up in Wakefield, graduated Wakefield High, class of 2000. I'm currently raising both my sons in Wakefield. I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old. I have been involved with many numerous organizations over the years, from PTOs to WCAT to the Chamber of Commerce. I was the last vice chair of the charter committee. I've worked in the town for 23 years now, and I have a lot of knowledge about the town. I know the town, and I want to give back and continue to give back to the town that I grew up in.
Wonderful. Well, I'll say, what do you think, in your opinion, is the #1 most pressing issue in Wakefield?
I think there's kind of two that tie into each other right now, development and economic growth, especially in our downtown areas. And I think the two of those tie into each other because, you need development to kind of keep the economic growth going, but you want to be very thoughtful in how you develop and where you develop and how you're going to go about this. So I think right now those are the two main things that we have on the table in front of us, especially with the state regulations coming up as far as the area for the MBTA and the multiple family housing.
Well, and I will tell you, the #1 question or comments we received was all about development. For every one question we received about something, we received 3 or more about development. I'm probably exaggerating a little. I don't have the exact numbers, but we did hear a lot about development in town. So, in general, what is your feeling on the development in town? And then what I'd like to do is go through a list of some of the current developments and get your opinion on them. But can you give us your overall philosophy on housing development in town?
I think we need housing development, but it has to be done strategically. It has to be done mindfully. We need to understand the areas that we're putting these buildings in. It needs to be put in areas of town that work. We need to understand traffic patterns in these areas. We need to make sure we're building things that are going to fit the area that they're going into. But I think we still need to move forward in the community. We do need to continue development. We need to make our town accessible to everybody that wants to come in, and that's new families that maybe not be able to buy brand new homes, single family homes right away, but maybe could buy multifamilies or buy into condos until they can get into single family homes here. I think we need to look at not just development for new families coming in, but also affordable developments for our seniors to keep them in the communities that they love, keep them here, and give them opportunities to move to the town if they want to, or downsize from the homes that they have.
No, and then let's go down the list. The one that I think has probably given us the most feedback was the development on Nahant Street. And the current, the current neighborhood struggles and what they're going through. And what are your thoughts on on that particular development. And then there's a few more that we'll go through, but
Yeah,
that's probably the one that came up the most.
I think Nahant Street needs to be really, really looked at a little closer. I don't think what's being proposed is probably the right fit for that area, the fit for that neighborhood. I think maybe, it needs to be downsized a lot more than what we're looking at right now. But like I said before, we need to make sure that we're putting things in places that are going to work for the neighbors, for the community, for the streets that we're putting them on. So I think that's one that really needs to be looked at again and come back with a better plan.
No, and then the other one was at the top of the lake. I think the last I heard, it was 400 units.
I thought 470 was maybe.
Don't hold me to it. I don't want to lie.
My big issue with that is I think when they first came into the town, we had thought there was going to be a mixed use with commercial properties as well as retail properties. And as we know, commercial properties would really kind of help our tax rates in town, and that's kind of an issue that we've been looking at as far as bringing in more commercial tax revenue. So I was disappointed to kind of learn that that's not really going to be on the table anymore. I think 470 units is a lot of units. I don't know if I'm so concerned as far as people going into those units, as far as families and the stress it'll have on our schools. I think it's going to be more stress on our police force, our fire force, and with a unit that large over there, there are things we need to look at and think about down the road. Are we going to need more different satellite fire locations? So while, it's probably going to be okay as far as, putting those units where they are, I think that there's some issues that we really need to think about long term here as far as, our resources and if we're going to be able to support a unit that is that large. No,
and that kind of brings me to the next one we received quite a bit of feedback from, which was the MBTA, and the state law minimum and the overlay versus the larger map.
Yep.
I guess your overall thoughts on what you would like to see. I know there's going to be a town meeting article going forward. I guess what do you expect your vote to be, or would you propose the bigger plan that seems to be coming forward, or the plan being presented at town meeting that would be, well, I guess they're both there, but that would be the minimum by the MBTA standards, the minimum necessary to comply with the law?
Right. I think what we have to look at is, first off, none of these are going to be built anytime soon. We would have to find lots and everything for these multifamily homes to be bought. The map is only just kind of an area of where people could develop. It doesn't mean it's going to be done anytime soon. I think we also have to, be thoughtful about, the minimum, what the minimum is now. Could the state change that on us, or are they going to change that on us? Is this being a little more proactive by making it a little bit larger? And then again, my thoughts are, going back to the multifamily housing, it could make living in Wakefield a little more affordable for people, whether that is new families coming in, buying the properties and using the rental income to support their mortgages and being able to come to a community they want to live in, or, other families that want to downsize and want to go into multifamily units. I think that, I don't think we're going to see the stress of all these being built right away. I think that it could be really beneficial to just the housing crisis that we have going on, finding housing for people, but also affordable housing. But I think I don't think the larger map is awful right now. I think that we need to just, again, look at the plans and be more proactive and just kind of anticipate where we think the state might go with this. I would hate to see us in a situation where we just said, okay, bare minimum, that's it, that's all we're going to do, and then down the road get into another sticky situation.
Yeah, so it sounds like if you had to choose right now, you're probably leaning towards the bigger map.
Yep.
No. So overall, those were most of the developments that we heard from. I do want to pivot to the other issue that we've heard quite a bit about, which is downtown. You spoke about it as when we asked the number one pressing issue. You said the two were downtown and economic development. What are your thoughts on the downtown and economic development in Wakefield as a whole? Because I always, I don't want to leave out our friends in Greenwood or on the Albion corridor, the North Ave corridor. And even our poor friends on at Four Corners by Dolbear, who recently they just had a fire, but knock on wood, it looks like everybody's okay, thank God. What are your thoughts on economic development in the town? And then I'll talk about some of the issues that came up during the questions.
Yeah, so I think, good point with, it's not just our downtown we have to focus on, we need to incorporate all our business areas. And I think when it comes to bringing in more economic growth and development, we need to think outside the box a little bit. There are going to be issues that are in our control, and there are going to be issues that are way out of our control that we are not going to be able to do anything about. But what we can do is maybe look at opportunities for different industries that we may want to bring in that would bring business to the town. And whether that's, tech industries or things along that line, is that going to bring more people into the town that are then going to want to go to our businesses, use our businesses, and then new businesses that want to come into the downtown are going to see that growth and that development and want to be in downtown Wakefield.
I just want to jump on that, but
Sure.
how do you do that? Because I've heard people say that before. I mean, you're not the first candidate to mention that, and I don't want to give my opinion, but how do you actually make that happen? What would you suggest?
I think we as a town need to look at, maybe some tax incentives to bring in businesses. And one example that I'm going to bring up just because it's it's a little of my background, but the Commonwealth had introduced a tax incentives for movie industries to come to the state back in 2011. And that has been incredibly successful to the economic growth of that industry in the state and to other industries as well. And I think, the tax incentives can really, really help if we're targeting the right audiences and we're targeting, different markets. I think that's definitely something we need to look at to see if we can bring those bigger corporations here, on the Audubon Road areas, to help bring other businesses in. I think that's definitely an area we need to explore. Another way to think outside the box on that issue.
So I'm going to jump around just because I think there's an allusion to it in our comments. We received some feedback about the marijuana district, the overlay being presented.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that as a way to bring businesses to Wakefield? Is that the type of business you want to see in Wakefield?
So my understanding with that, it was on Audubon Road. That wouldn't be a
That's what really triggered the thought.
That wouldn't be a dispensary. It's more of a headquarters distribution type location, not like a retail distribution. Honestly, I mean, it's legal in Massachusetts now, and it is becoming a big industry, and it could provide a lot of jobs. It could bring, tax revenue to the town. So I'm not opposed to it.
That makes sense. The other items that came up when we talked about this, and these are some of the cyclical issues we hear about, but one is the number of vacancies, specifically in downtown Wakefield. You've served on the chamber. You're at the Savings Bank, which is right there. What can we do to decrease that number of vacancies and increase the vacancies? Specifically, the comments that came in were about downtown Wakefield.
Yeah, I think one big issue that we need to try to find a solution to, that's not going to be easy, is a partnership with the landlords. We need to find a way that the town and the landlords can work together in this, because that's really the biggest hurdle to get over right now, is the working together with the landlords. Why we need to look at why are these businesses empty for so long? What is the hurdle? And maybe that's something talking to the landlords or the real estate agents that are working with these properties to have that conversation. What are they seeing issues with getting people in, or is it something else we need to know about? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they're looking for businesses and they're being selective of who they want to bring in, or if businesses are looking at these properties and for whatever reason they're not working for them. I think that's a huge discussion that we need to try to have with these landlords to see if there are issues that we can correct.
No, and there were two two issues about the vacancies that came up that could be a reason for it. One of them was downtown parking. I guess the question would be, do you believe that there is a parking issue? And assuming if so, how would we solve it?
I do think, certain times, certain days, and certain times of day, there is definitely a parking issue. You know, I think we also have to understand that we're probably never going to be able to park right in front of the businesses we want to be in front of. We may have to walk a little bit. But yes, I think in certain days and times, it is very hard to find parking, especially towards the summer months when there's other events going on in town. We want to encourage people to go to Jazz on the Plaza at the BB and different events downtown, and that's going to increase traffic and cars that we have coming. So yes, we need to look at different ways and different places maybe we can bring in some parking. Are there any open places that we could add parking spaces to? We're not going to see a parking garage opportunity again, but we need to look at and see if there's other locations where we could bring in some parking.
No, and in addition, I would say, what would the other comment that came up quite a bit was some of the individuals that hang out downtown who might be in unfortunate circumstances and may be intimidating to some people. We see them, we've seen people sleeping in the storefronts.
Yes.
Or maybe not in the best mental state in downtown Wakefield. Again, very similar. Do you think this is an issue? And if so, how would you solve it?
I think sadly it's a large epidemic that we see going on in many communities right now. I think the town is trying to address it the best they can. They've brought in more staff to their Health and Human Resources Department that are working with these individuals. They're bringing in resources for people. The police are being more trained and educated on the subject. So I think the town is trying. There's definitely more we can do in that area, but sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult. These are individuals. They're people too, and we have to be sensitive to that. We have to be sensitive to what they're comfortable with, or where they want to go, or where they want to be. But I think we have some great staff on the Health and Human Resources Department that is looking for ways to solve that.
And then, excuse me, and I was going to say on that front, do you have any particular solutions you'd like to see implemented, or anything specific, or I guess do you have any kind of solutions you'd like to see implemented yet, or just wait to see what?
Specifically towards bringing businesses to the downtown?
Oh, no, I was going to say to deal with the individuals downtown. If there was anything specific you've seen the Board of Health do, or the police department do, or anything that you'd like to see expanded on.
I'd like to see more resources for people that are looking for help, or locations where they can go during the day to get help if they're looking for it, or just ways that we can maybe just reach out to them and bring them to a safer location, or bring them to a warm location when it's cold, and make them not feel like they're being displaced in any way or anything like that, but that people are generally trying to help them.
Yeah, then I don't want to say it's the last downtown question, but the other issue that came down, and I'm putting this in downtown just because I couldn't really figure out the other category, but we've seen it in the news recently in Wakefield, but biking. We saw the master plan, we saw the discussions about biking, the creation of bike lanes, the removal of parking spots for bike lanes, the encouragement of bike lanes. What are your thoughts on what's happening and on biking in general, and making Wakefield more biker friendly? Good thing, bad thing?
Yeah, I think we have to remember one of our greatest resources in town is Lake Quannapowitt. For recreation, we see huge numbers of people running, walking, and biking. And I think we need to do everything we can to make it safer for people that are doing that. Whether or not they're biking all through town all day long, or just in the warmer months, they're riding their bike around the lake, I think we need to make sure it's safe. I don't want to see the removal of parking spaces, and I'm glad to see in the new plan that came forward, we keep those parking spaces. We want to encourage people to use the lake as recreational in our town. We want to use the common for events, and I think we can't do that if we're taking away the parking spaces. So the new plan that kept those while keeping it a little safer for people that do choose to bike, I think it was great. I really liked the new plan.
No, excuse me. To follow up on that, we did receive a question about road conditions in Wakefield. without giving the opinion, I guess, what are your thoughts on the current road conditions in Wakefield? And very similar, do you think there's a need for improvement? Do you think everything's copacetic? And just, I guess, what are your thoughts?
I think this is a really hard time of year to judge them because unfortunately it's going to happen this time every year. You're going to get damaged roads from plows. You're going to get the damaged roads from ice and snow, and the salt damages them. So this time of year is a very hard time to, really judge the roads because they're in probably worse shape now than the rest of the year. But yeah, we do need to find a little more money to be putting into keeping our roads safe, to making sure that they're kept up to where they need to be kept up to, and that goes to the sidewalks too. Everything, we need to make sure that the whole time that we're keeping everything safe. So yeah, I would say we should probably put a little bit more money into making sure that the roads do stay in a functional manner.
No, I was gonna say some of the roads they picked on, Salem Street was one of them. Some of those other towns, and it seems like it's been years for their conditions. So just to clarify, so your thought would be the best approach would probably be to put more funding into the paving property to make sure that we can pave these roads either faster or quicker.
Yeah, because I would assume, I've traveled up and down Salem. There's been quite a lot of road work done on that street in recent years. And has it been, totally corrected the way it should be and repaved the way it should be? We probably need to look at that a little bit more and be able to fix the roads that we're digging up to do work on, to make them, to fix them so people are able to drive down them.
No, and then I'd say that probably brings me, I think, the road conditions and the biking played into a discussion that was had just recently about voting locations. Right now, everybody's voting at the Galvin. Before, not too long ago, was every precinct had their own site.
Yep.
Town clerks expanded early voting efforts. What do you think overall about, I guess, how we do voting in Wakefield? Should it be different than where it is now? Should it be a different location? Should we go back to the old way? New way, mixed way?
I do sometimes miss the old way because I was right there near my precinct, and I enjoyed, walking and all of that there. But I do understand kind of the reasoning behind going to more of a centralized location. It does save money for the town as a whole to do it in one location. It does definitely cause headaches and issues for people trying to get to the polls to find the parking. And, something that we need to, I think, really be mindful of is if we're having an election, whether it's a primary, a presidential, a town election, those are probably days when we need to close that school and keep that parking open for people going to vote. And whether that's, if they want to do teacher development, moving them off-site to a different location, busing them in from a different location, we really need to keep those spaces open for the people that are going to vote. If we want to keep encouraging voting and getting our voting numbers up, we need to make sure we give people access to be able to vote.
Now, speaking of funding, and we talked about funding with voting locations, we talked about road conditions. Recently, at the very last meeting, the town council talked about ARPA. They made contributions or commitments about over $2 million. There was quite the debate. What would you like to see? This is kind of a two-part question. What would you like to have seen or see the ARPA funds used for? What are you most excited about? And what did you think of the approach the town council used to distribute those funds?
I think I was actually really happy with a lot of the decisions that were made. I'm excited to see what comes out of the $1 million that we put towards the kind of the small business fund that we had talked about this week. I think that could really be very beneficial to, again, economic development and growth and getting the downtown going. I think that was a great first start of how we kind of start changing things. I'm excited to see the solar panels on the Galvin. I think that's going to be great and a great money return.
That's going to town meeting, right?
That is going to go to town meeting too, yes. But that discussion, I think that's going to be a great, funding for the town and that we're going to see kind of money come in from that. So I think that was a really great, thoughtful idea to put forth. I liked to see that ARPA funding went towards some of our really awesome nonprofits in town that, are struggling after COVID, to see that the food pantry was getting money, and to see a great endeavor like Inspire Cafe get money to start up their business, which is also, encouraging small business and economic development. To see that the town stepped up and helped, WCAT a little bit more with ARPA funding. That was nice to see that they were giving some funds back to great nonprofits that we're lucky to have in town. And I think putting some of the money towards recreational and outdoor use was a great use of money, because I think, the town, we have some great parks and locations for people to get outside and use, and to put money back in that, I think that was a great move.
No, and then to follow up on that, I think some of the questions that came in included, the costs of living in town, and how expensive being in Wakefield is getting in terms of property taxes, water bills, other municipal fees.
Yeah.
So I guess it's, again, similar. Do you think that is an issue, the cost of living in Wakefield?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting.
No,
if so, how would you solve it?
Yes, I do think the cost of living it's getting very high in Wakefield, and I think it's hard for people to be buying in to get into the community, but I think it's even harder for, people on fixed incomes and all of that to stay in the community that they love. I think we need to look at different solutions of how we can help people with these tax bills, with these water bills are huge. The affordable housing trust that they put money into as well is a great start. But the costs are continuing to go up and up and up, and it's not going to get better anytime soon unless we are able to help invest some money and some funds and some resources to help people when they need it. We want to make sure everybody can stay in Wakefield that wants to stay in Wakefield.
Just to continue on that, so you mentioned the housing trust. Are there any other programs you'd like to see get funded, or any cuts you would want? I mean, you could also go the other way. Any other cuts you would like to see in the town budget that maybe would lower the overall tax burden? Is there anything in either of those two categories that you'd like to see done specifically, or you would advocate for specifically as a town councilor?
I think, looking at the budgets right now, I think they're fair at where they're at, as what each department is asking for. But, I think we need to look at maybe different programs as far as tax relief programs to help people that need it. Maybe some more mental health programs in the town, though we're going in the right direction with that. I think we need to make sure that our police is funded, our fire is funded, so we have adequate staff, because unfortunately, recently we've seen some kind of awful fires and emergencies where, we need to make sure we have adequate staff to be able to handle those. And if we're bringing in more development, we need more staff. So I'd like to make sure that all those departments are fully funded to the best of our ability to make sure that they're running properly.
And then we'll pivot a little bit to two areas or two questions that came out. One was, how do you feel about the schools, and how do you feel the town council could either impact the schools? And as a town councilor, at least in my lifetime, I've seen it kind of handled two ways. One, to try to rein in the school budget, or two, be an advocate for the schools on the town council. And you could also be both, depending on the year, things change. But what are your thoughts on the Wakefield school system as a whole, and kind of ways you could improve it as a town councilor? I know you're not running for school committee, but it did come up, so I want to be fair to it.
Having two kids in the system, I have one at Galvin and one at Greenwood. And as a whole, I think we're really lucky. We have a really great school system. We have an amazing bunch of teachers who generally really care about the kids they're teaching day in and day out. With that said, I think we need to make sure that, are we paying the teachers we're bringing in? is it equivalent to what the surrounding communities are? And to be able to retain those amazing teachers that we have, we need to make sure that their pay is on par with other communities. And I think that's where it gets tricky, because obviously cost of living is going to go up, salaries are going to keep going up, and that is going to make the school budget continue to keep rising. So to rein in the school budget, I don't know if there's too much we can do right now, because unfortunately the school is probably going to be our most expensive budget that we have. I do want to make sure that we're giving proper funding to special education. I think that's very important to make sure that our kids that are on IEPs, getting special education, are getting programs and getting the services that they truly, truly need. And that is going to cost us money as well. So I think it's really hard to rein in the budget. I think we have to be conscious of how much it's going up every year, but I think the school budget is one of the trickiest ones to be able to really trim down.
We received some feedback, actually, probably one of the very last questions we received was about working with colleagues in collegiality. We received a few about, what would be, I'm trying to figure out a way to ask this because we got it in a few different ways, but what would be your work style? Have you reached out to any of the current town councilors? How would you try to work with them and, make sure that when you go there, while you don't always have to agree, but it's always a respectful, dialogue, and really, it's the relationships that matter to help move the town forward.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I have had some great conversations with some of the current town councilors, and I think one of the most important things that I've kind of learned in life along the way is you have to, you may not always agree, but you need to listen to all the sides. You need to listen to everybody, because you may learn something. You may not know, you may learn something that you didn't know, or learn that, something you thought should be a different way for whatever reason. So I think the number one thing to do is listen. Just listen to other people. And I always like to live by the thought of, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, because I feel like you can learn so much more from everybody else who brings their own expertise to the table, whether it's on development or on road conditions or legal aspects. I think everybody at that table has something to offer, and I think the best we can do is to listen to our colleagues and listen to everybody, and that's how you're going to work together, is if you really just kind of let everybody share their opinions.
No, to go to the final two issues that we got questions about. One was about flags. Earlier this year, there was a debate about flags in front of the AmeriCal Civic Center. What are your thoughts?
I think our American flag and the POW flag needs to be on a separate flagpole, which I think our flag policy has done a really good job with. It's on its own. We do have a separate flagpole for the other flags that we raise. I have read through the flag policy. I think it's been put together well. I think we've really, it's gone back and forth many, many times and had many, many discussions. But I think those discussions have led to us putting together something that for the time being works. It's always, always room to go back and review it again, look at it and see how it changes, because as times change, we're going to need to change that policy. But I do think the American flag and the POW needs to be completely on its own flagpole in front of our public buildings. But I do think we need the area and the space to be able to raise those other flags that, resonate with our community.
So you would be okay with, the two that were brought up, the Pride flag and the Juneteenth flag, being in front of the AmeriCal Civic Center as long as they were on another flagpole? Yeah,
I would. And I do, I know the flagpole was put in AmeriCal, but, maybe we need to look at other locations too. Is there a more central location that would work better for the town or for those groups? I think it's always open to discussion, and we can look at other opportunities. But I think right now, for it being on its own flagpole, I think
on its own flagpole at the AmeriCal
is fine.
That makes sense. And then before we get to some more open-ended questions, the last topic we heard was about our town administrator. What are your thoughts on the job he's doing. And I guess that's really it. I mean, what can you say? What do you think? How do you think Steve's doing?
It's not an easy job. It's not a job I don't know if I would want. It's a very difficult job. I think what he has in front of him right now is not the easiest things. And I think more, difficult things come up every day. But I think generally Steve's doing a great job.
Well, all right. So we did get a few open questions. So I'll ask you, two of them came up. Can you give us an example of when you changed your mind on an issue?
When I listen to other people's opinions.
Do you have any specific examples?
Not that I can think of right now. I think there's many, but I think, I think there have been times that my mind has been changed because I've really listened to the other side and really listened to how they feel, and I think that's a big part of this job. You really need to listen to the people that vote for you. You need to listen to the residents. You need to listen to your colleagues. There's a lot of voices to listen to, but I think you can learn a lot there.
All right, and then what issue do you think that you will deal with as a town councilor that we are not talking about today, or?
Oh, I really don't know. I think things can change every day. I think, to continue to move the town forward, I think we're going to have issues come up all the time that we may not even anticipate. And I think that's going to be the hardest part of the job, is when something comes up that you really didn't anticipate and how you deal with that and how you handle that. But I really can't think of anything off the top of my head right now that may come up in the next few years that we're not already talking about.
All right, well then we'll end with some fun questions, all right?
Okay.
All right, your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Great Gatsby.
Oh, great book. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I'm kind of a nerd. I love anything Star Wars.
Favorite musician band?
Very cliche, but Taylor Swift.
Oh, love Taylor. That's fine. Favorite song?
Oh, I don't really have a favorite song. I love music in general. So.
And favorite show?
Oh, favorite show. I would have to say currently, because I always change my mind, but Ted Lasso.
Oh, great show.
Yes.
All right. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to do similar to what you did before.
Okay.
One last chance to ask the voters of Wakefield to put you on the town council.
Okay. Like I had said at the beginning, I've been involved in numerous organizations over the years in Wakefield that have given me the chance to really learn about different people in the town and different opportunities and how our town works and what needs to kind of change and be different. And I can see like the issues coming up with development and economic growth. I can see those being very important to the town, and I hope that I have the knowledge and the abilities and kind of the way to think about things differently that would add value to those issues and that would help us move forward and grow. And I look forward to really being able to meet more of the residents in the town and hear their thoughts on different issues coming up and learning from them. And I hope that would help me be able to contribute back to the town and get some of these issues moving forward a little bit more. And so I hope that you would consider giving me one of your 2 votes on April 23rd.
Oh. All right, well, Allie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before I end, I do want to thank WCAT. They're the ones who put this on. I tell everybody we're very, very lucky in other communities. The local cable access channel does not do things like this, does not do candidate forums or candidate debates or films as many things as WCAT does. So thank you to Allie. We should be back in about, say, 15, 20 minutes with Mr. Carney. And until then, please, I guess, enjoy whatever blank screen Ian and the crew put on. Thank you so much for watching. Allie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know what? Thank you for running, because it is, it's not easy, and we need more people to put themselves out there.
Thank you very much.